Fantastic. Praise the Lord. Who's with me? This is my first time to go live using an encoder, so bear with me just a bit. Hopefully y'all are, it's not showing something 15 minutes trying to figure this out and that you're here, but should be no problem, I don't think. If you're here with me and you're live, let me know where you're from. Let me know that you can see me and hear me by putting in where you're from in the comments, and we'll wait for a couple of folks to join us. And I want to talk to you about something extremely important. Matter of fact, it's something that I do talk about with folks who come through our permaculture design course, but it's something to think about, and especially in our times right now, in our current pandemic, and the seriousness that's happening to the world in this kind of standstill. So again, if you're just coming on, say hello. If you can hear me and you can see me really well on this YouTube live, do put where you are in the comments, or where you're from in the comments. And if you have any questions, we can wait till the end, or I might just make it a very pointed, quick video so you can see what I'm talking about and see the message I'd really like to portray here. And so the question that I asked right at the top of this video is, are you potentially part of the most important generation that has ever lived? Right? If you are, we're going to find out. And also potentially it might not be the most important generation ever lived, dependent upon what we actually, what this generation actually does. So in the comments, let me know not only where you're from, but what generation are you from? So I'm going to talk to you today about something different than what is typically talked about in most permaculture talks, but by all means it is definitely and detrimentally important to think about this. So I'm going to talk to you as Nicholas Bergner, the director of the School of Permaculture, but as a husband and as a father and as a businessman, and as a permaculturist, right? We're going to talk about the most, or potentially the most important and influential generation that has ever lived, that's currently has the potential to currently have those titles right here. So what are the generations that we can look at? Now, I'm not talking about generations as such as the anthropological and archaeological evidences, from 12,500 BC or something like that, right? I'm talking in the last 150 years, something like this. So we can go back. Let's just start with the greatest generation that ever lived. Now, I'm not calling them that. I believe it's Tom Brokaw who had a book written called The Greatest Generation Ever Lived. And they were around at the turn of the century-ish, of the 20th century, so in the early 1900s. And this was the generation that went to World War II, right? We're talking some tough guys. My grandfather being part of this generation. And a lot of worldly experience, a lot of go to and get stuff done. Now, they came back from the war on a high and wanted to just explode, and they did. They exploded through babies, right? And they created almost the industrial age-ish in the 20th century, and they created the baby boomers, right? That was the huge, that they were called the baby boomers because there were so many. The earth was flooded with humans definitely during this time. So the baby boomers came about, and they obviously rebelled against their parents like every generation does. And they had the Generation X. And Generation X came, and after Generation X is the Millennials. And then after the Millennials, I think it's what we're in kind of right now, which is Generation Z. There's also the silent generation that was right after the greatest generation that ever lived. So that is in there as well. But, we can see right now, if you look at social media and online, you can kind of see that there's this bickering between baby boomers and um, uh, uh, millennials, right? There's this kind of like, something going on, right? And it's all fun and games ish, but people are getting kind of offended by some of these things. But let's talk about the baby boomers for just a second, right? So even though they're currently at odds with the millennials, the baby boomers are an amazing generation, and I mean that in multiple ways. I want you to really think about this. So no other generation ever in the history of humans, not one generation, can say they've had complete excess their entire lives. Right? And we can definitely look at the anthropological evidence there, right? So, I mean, right now, even we're still within this generation, right? So this generation is still around. But like, look, you go to a fast food place, you can just pull out like half the stack of paper towels, right? You can go into the bathroom, I guess, and go get toilet papers. There's a toilet paper shortage. Not that I'm recommending that, but no other generation in history had that opportunity. Along with that also came much rise in the industrial era, or the industrialization of the world, and also the technological advancements too, along with the pollution. So the baby boomers got to own that. They have to own that, along with some of the greatest generation that ever lived, because prior to some of the government stopping of pollution, I mean, rivers were just extremely polluted. So there has been progress, but I mean, look at all the plastics and whatnot that's out there. So pollution's a bad problem. Overspending, this consumption ideology that is just infiltrated the brains of everybody, and that's not good. It's not good at all. However, at the same time, I want to talk about the benefits of the potential that the baby boomers are in. Since the baby boomers have lived their entire life with excess, right, much more than we could ever imagine, it's also kind of the last generation, or the generation right now, where money is in excess too. Now look, I'm sure the baby boomers and the millennials and anybody who's got investments right now are really hurting in the stock market, right? There's a stock market crash. You're definitely lower than 50% unless you shorted the market or something like that, right? So there's an investment that was made monetarily, maybe to hand over to your children, maybe to make your life better in your golden years or something like this. And you're probably second guessing this investment that you made, and you're obviously looking at the future. But I think some of the things that are kind of short-sighted, and remember, I'm talking to you not only as a permaculturist, but I've been a small business owner and entrepreneur since 1998, really a couple years before, but I could only legally do it in 1998. I've owned the same small business since 2002, and the School of Permaculture is a 501c3 nonprofit. And I've had to stop myself from starting a couple other ventures because my plate's too full. I don't want to spread too thin, especially being a husband and a father. So I'm not coming at this from this ideology that, I just hate money. It's not that. Money makes things a lot easier, but at the same time, for me not to put energy into resource creation was, I found, very silly. So these ideas that money is going to be the end-all be-all. I mean, look, when we first got into this pandemic, the supermarkets were out of food, right? Instantly. Meat, cheeses, eggs, toilet paper, gone. Hardly anything on toiletries, anything on the shelves. Well, that's come back. That's recently it's come back. But now we're in a quarantine globally. So say this goes on another 6 months. I mean, people are already losing their jobs. And still is food to buy, and distribution is happening. How are people going to pay for it? How are people going to pay for this anything if they don't have jobs to go to? And there's no such thing as job security. When my grandfather came back from the war, he got a job with a Fortune 500 company, and he retired from that job, and he held a pension until the day he died and had benefits. That doesn't exist hardly for anybody right now. Hardly anybody. So what's secure? I mean, look, if you're an employee, you only get so many years, and then they're looking for reasons to let you go so they don't have to pay you, you know, when you're not actually working, right? Everybody has gotten smart in order to cut the fat so they're not hemorrhaging money. Like all the big companies, they're all got boards of directors that answer back to investors, right? You know, the common people or uncommon people who are investing, and they're just about making money. Not all the time it's about helping people. So there's no such thing as security. Maybe a small business owner type of idea is for you, but I want to posit an idea that has been around for a long time, and it's one of the most secure things you can do. And this is the real message to the baby boomers, really, right? You have the opportunity, with all the negative press and all the potentially bad things that the baby boomers have done to the planet, you actually have an opportunity to turn that around and do something substantially positive to the legacy of humanity right now. This is an opportunity that no other generation has had prior to your generation, and no other generation will have after. I mean, look, the millennials, and especially Gen Z, tiny homes are going to be what can be afforded. Like, that's what they're going to be able to afford. It's not like they're going to choose after a while to go into a tiny home. I mean, tiny homes are $60,000. That's a big investment, right? You have to take a mortgage on that. Most people, the Gen Z and even the millennials are living with their parents, you know, after 27 years old, 35 years old, right? I mean, the greatest generation that ever lived. I mean, like a tiny fraction. I mean, below 10% ever did that. And not that there's anything wrong with living with your parents. I have a daughter. Right? She doesn't have to leave. I love hanging out with my daughter. So I'm not giving any kind of judgment to what people do. I'm just giving you some statistics. So this opportunity lies in the generation that could have the most influence on the planet and on people, and that is the baby boomers right now, because you have excess funds. Now, even though your stock markets investments are way small right now, and maybe people, if you have real estate investments, they're not able to make their rent, and you know, praise the Lord for the moratorium on not evicting people right now. But you have this opportunity because you can actually turn those investments into long-term generational care, landscape, perennial systems, or what we call permaculture, right? So maybe you did have these investments to make it good at the end of your life in your golden years, or hand down 401ks or money to your generation that's going to follow, and money will make things easier. But if you can't buy anything in the store, what good is money going to be for you there? If you, have another reason that you can't get some type of food or water, money's not going to be as a value for you. But food will always be valuable for humans, right? And this cheap food paradigm that we're in right now, because of cheap fossil fuels and chemical agriculture, won't last. And you can, don't take my word for it. Just study history of every civilization that's utilized agriculture. I'm not saying it's the only reason, but every civilization that's utilized agriculture has dropped off the face of the planet. Do you think we'll be any different? Mm-hmm. So we can change agriculture into a permanent culture, right? Or a permaculture. And take those dollars, now that you're going to be in your golden years, and do something maybe that the northern or the Europeans did in the Enlightenment era, or the 1300s, 1400s, 1500s, right? And now I'm not saying this is a fair system, and maybe you're gonna do something different. But what they did is, if you own land, especially if you farm that land, because guess what? Prior to like 1915, 1916, most people actually grew their own food, or had very small villages. So prior to that, it was handed down to the oldest son. The land was handed down to the oldest son, right? We're trying to like hand down investments to your kids or something like this. And one of the worst things you could do is actually hand over land and split it in between kids right now, right? Because there's all types of problems that happen there. Now, I'm not saying it's fair to the other kids at all. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that that's what you should do. I'm just telling you what has been done and has been very successful. Investing in landscape where you have long-term perennial systems, right? Where you're working with tree systems. You're not looking at like annual grain, small grain agriculture. That's so much work. That's why people don't want to grow food. They think it's a lot of work. Well, it can be, but it also can be much more simplified and can be worked at differently when you're looking at growing food for your family and for your community around you, and not just trying to grow food to make a bunch of money, right? I mean, most farmers don't. You can, right? So there's a difference there, growing food to sell it to make money and growing food for your family. And growing food for your family, you can build soil fertility, which is a radical claim that permaculture says we can do, is produce food on the same soil, because you understand plants are miners. We eat the nutrition that they mine out, we put it in a flush toilet, or we sell it and it goes away, and it's running in a deficit all the time. So, doing something and making a claim that you can grow food on the same soil and build soil fertility for an extended or an infinite, in perpetuity time period is a radical claim, and it has been backed up because we utilize the small handful of documented cases all over the globe of indigenous cultures who've been able to do this for thousands of years. And if we didn't, I mean, it would just be regular agriculture anyhow. But we have appropriate technology today, and we have had the time to sit and think and design, right? Put in the hours of thinking. So my real reason for being here live with you today, and if you're live with me right now, put where you're from in the comments, and let me know that if you're doing permaculture or if you're not, and also let me know what generation that you're part of. And so I'll stick around just for a bit here at the end as I'm wrapping up to answer any questions. But baby boomers, you have the opportunity right now. Invest in landscape. Land's not a bad investment anyway. It's an extremely safe investment compared to the other things. But not only landscape, right? Because landscape's one part. It could be a problem if it's just sitting there. But long-term, perennial, generational care systems, right? And if you don't know how to do that, reach out to me. I will gladly help you. Take a permaculture design course near you or online. We have one at the School of Permaculture. You can go to the website now, go to like the purchase section there, and you can enroll and learn these long-term perennial systems where you can help the future of humanity. You could radically change things for humans right now and for the planet. We can make this a really better place. And now's the time to think about it, because things are weird. Things are kind of crazy out there. So think this through. Don't make a quick judgment. Just sit on it, think about it, and know that you have the power in your hands to do something great with those dollars. So I'll wrap that up here. I'm Nicholas Bertner with the School of Permaculture. I've taught and certified hundreds of students in multiple countries. I've certified them. I've taught thousands in person. And our little YouTube channel here, a small YouTube channel, we got over 1.5 million views. Just people are hungry for this information. So, I'm here for you. I want to help you during these times of this crisis and this pandemic, and I'll make myself available to you. And I'm going to be trying to come at you at least once a week with good information and some things to really think about. So, with that, we'll close up here. And if you have any questions, just put them in the comments. By the way, this is my first Facebook Live through a system like this. Everything's changing, so I'm not even exactly sure where to navigate this Facebook Live, but I'll figure it out here in a bit. All right. Hey, great. There's some good conversation here in the chat. Every Permie I know is Gen X. How interesting. We've got, there's some millennials and Gen Z probably in there now. Yeah, good deal. Well, look, You guys carry the conversation. I put a blessing on you guys in the name of Jesus. And put any questions in the comments. I want to hear from you. I want to know what your thoughts are on this. Talk to the people around you, especially if they're baby boomers. Let them watch this video. Just go back in history and start studying some people, or just ask me some questions, and I'll tell you some very interesting things about civilizations and agriculture, and how permaculture can really help your family, your future family, and the planet simultaneously. So with that, I love you guys, and we'll see you later.